What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily. So have you heard about the new iPhone 15 Pro?
Do you mean this one, the one with titanium?
Built with titanium. The new titanium iPhone 15 Pro.
Check it out, made with titanium. And it's made with titanium.
Titanium, the same material used in spacecraft design.
You know, I feel like Apple is usually pretty good about marketing their new products, but man, are those commercials annoying. The iPhone 15 Pro has a lot more going for it than just its new titanium build. And it's weird to me that Apple doesn't more regularly mention those things, like the new action button, or the USB-C port, or even the better cameras. I feel like every year the cameras are a standout feature, but I haven't seen any ads touting that this time. Even on Apple's own website, all that stuff is 2 or 3 sections below the multiple blurbs talking about titanium. Now, I have my theories as to why the new iPhone 15 Pro features aren't really being talked about. Probably because when you really get into it, the new features are a little half-baked. The action button isn't all that action-packed. The USB-C port probably wasn't Apple's idea in the first place. And unless you buy the iPhone 15 Pro Max, your Samsung friends are still going to show off their super zoom cameras while iPhone users get memed to death about it. The thing is though, I do actually think the iPhone 15 Pro has enough new features and changes to warrant an upgrade this year. And I haven't really been able to say that since like the iPhone 13 Pro maybe. So if you've been hanging on to your old iPhone, this year is the year to get a new one. And not just because it's made from the same materials as the rocket sent to Mars. In fact, seeing this phone in person and holding it in your hand, you probably wouldn't even notice the new titanium build. 90% of the phone front and back looks and feels like every Pro iPhone before it. There's the frosted rear cover, that's not new. The front display and dynamic island notch are all the same size and design. No, the bezels aren't really any thinner. The titanium is just the frame of the phone, the edges. At least that's the part you can see. And the bare metal look of this natural titanium colorway, I guess, gives you a closer view of the material itself. And sure, I do personally like the fact that it's far less of a fingerprint magnet than the polished stainless steel was. But seriously, it's not a big deal at all. On the regular size 15 Pro here, it also doesn't make the phone that much lighter, only about 18 or 19 grams, which is really nothing. You can't feel that difference, at least not as much as with the larger 15 Pro Max. Now, technically, the edges of the iPhone 15 Pro are redesigned a little bit. They were kind of shaved down or contoured. They're more rounded, which makes the phone actually feel a little more comfortable in the palm of your hand. But more than that, it also just means you'll probably need a new case for this phone. Most of the tight, slim fit cases are going to be a few millimeters off in every direction. Really, this is just yet another year where the iPhone basically looks the same. And unless someone knows the specific new colors of the new iPhone each year, all the ones this year are just so bland, by the way. Very few people are going to call you out and ask about the new iPhone in your hand. It's certainly not like those commercials. Now, I want to talk about the whole USB-C thing because I think this change is going to have the biggest impact on people, and honestly, it is the single biggest change to hit the iPhones in a long, long time. The Lightning port is no more. All the new iPhones this year are USB-C, and I do think this is an inherently positive change. It just makes things easier. Everyone can use the same charger now. All accessories are pretty much compatible. There's no longer an iPhone version and an Android version of things. I mean, you can use your friend's Samsung cable to charge your iPhone now. That's super convenient. If you aren't quite yet engulfed by the USB ecosystem, I guess you'll at least have to buy yourself a couple of new cables, maybe a car charger. The cable Apple gives you in the box actually is one of the nicest USB-C ones out there, so that's a great start. And I know a bunch of Apple's own products are USB-C already, like some of their iPads and the MacBooks, so it shouldn't be a drastic, headache-inducing change. But I don't think it's a change that Apple themselves really wants to bring too much attention to. Made for iPhone accessories were a huge business. Lightning was their proprietary port. It was the defining characteristic of the iPhone and other Apple accessories for 10 years. And if we're to believe the tabloids, the transition to USB-C may not have even been Apple's own choice to begin begin with. So I can totally see why this is something Apple maybe doesn't want to talk about, but from a customer perspective, it is a minor inconvenience at first, but in the long run is a really, really positive change. It simplifies so much, and I actually think it's the number one reason to opt for a new iPhone this year. And to keep your USB-C cables and all your other tech accessories organized, I'd recommend picking up Bellroy's Tech Kit, this video's sponsor. The Tech Kit is a small zip-up carrier pouch designed to neatly organize all the essentials you take with you. Its exterior is made from a recycled woven fabric that looks great and is also water resistant, since you definitely wouldn't want anything in here getting wet. And on the inside, the Tech Kit is divided into a bunch of different compartments with various pouches, pockets, and stretchy straps that fit items of all sizes and shapes. It has this hierarchy of organization, and everything gets its own spot, so you can easily take out or put back each item as you need it. There's large and small size stretchy straps, which are perfect for cords and cables, dongles and adapters, watch bands, AirPods, and even the Apple Pencil. The main storage pocket secures magnetically and is big enough to fit a full-sized power bank, some pens, or even a whole smartphone. And there's two more medium-sized pockets, which are perfect for, say, a Bluetooth mouse or a charging brick. The Tech Kit holds everything in place, even when the bag is being tossed around. The exterior also holds its shape so nothing gets squished, and each time I open the Tech Kit back up, everything is exactly where I placed it. I use the Tech Kit every time I travel now. It really helps keep all my essentials organized, and if you're interested, I'll leave a link to it down below in the video description, along with a 10% off code for all of Bellroy's products. So let's talk about the action button, because weirdly enough, this is also a change to one of the most iconic physical features of the iPhone. The silent ringer switch was on every single iPhone from the very first one, but now on the iPhone 15 Pro, it's a button similar to the volume and power buttons. By default, the action of the action button is still to switch the iPhone from silent mode, but you can change that in settings to be one of about 7 or 8 other actions. It can launch the camera, switch you to focus mode, you can set an accessibility option, or have it be associated with a shortcut, which is probably the most useful task it can be set to. But with all those perceived options, the action button is still a one-trick pony. You can only press and hold the action button to do the one action you set it to, and you have to press and hold it, by the way. Otherwise it gets mad at you and doesn't do the action, probably as a way to deter accidental action clicks when you really meant to maybe adjust the volume. But a double or triple click would have been nice, or maybe a more direct way to choose a specific Apple or third-party app launch, or maybe the action button could be associated to a specific app or a couple specific apps. I think my biggest issue is just the fact that I don't really know what the action button solves. I mean, it could be such a powerful, unique button, but it doesn't do anything more than a single or couple taps on the screen would otherwise do. I feel like there might be more to this in the future, but I don't know, I just don't really see the utility of it right now. One thing that Apple didn't change on the iPhone 15 Pro this year is the display. And I won't spend too much time on this because, well, obviously there's nothing more to say, but I do still think the viewing experience on the iPhone 15 Pro in particular is quite solid. Last year's iPhone 14 Pro got the brighter display. And while in theory that seems like it would have been a good move, in practice, the phone doesn't stay at its maximum brightness for all that long until it starts to heat up and auto dim. I live in Las Vegas, it gets warm, the phone auto dims back down, and even on the iPhone 15 Pro so far, it's not really any better. And I feel like the titanium material and the new internal processor should allow the phone to stay cooler and keep the screen brighter for longer, but that hasn't been the case for me. Otherwise, the iPhone 15 Pro offers that nice vibrant display, Apple's Super Retina XDR with Pro Motion, the better than 1080p resolution, and I think it's a display that people thoroughly enjoy. I don't know what they really could have improved anyway on the display this year, except maybe even more brightness, so it's all okay with me. The other thing that remained unchanged on the iPhone this year, battery life. And this to me is kind of a bizarre decision. Not only does this phone last about as long as my iPhone 14 Pro last year, Apple also says on their website that it's the same long-lasting battery, so they didn't even pretend like it's better. Given the battery health controversy we saw this year, I sort of feel like Apple may be more concerned with lifetime battery longevity versus versus daily battery longevity. And maybe the new crazy fast processor just sucks the life out of the battery a little more too, to where Apple couldn't compensate. But I'm at this point now where I would much rather have a device with a big, huge battery that is also maybe a little thicker and that I know will last me like 16 hours on a single charge. Apple also didn't improve the charging speeds either, even with their move to USB-C, which isn't exactly surprising. Apple has never touted fast charging speeds as an iPhone feature. But come on now, when Android phones have twice the battery capacity and charge twice as quickly, it's time for Apple to step up their game. Battery life and charging speeds are things that the average person would notice day in and day out on a new phone, and it's bizarre to me that Apple hasn't improved those aspects in years. For the Pro iPhones this year, Apple did introduce a new processor, something they do every year, but things are a little different this time. For one, the new A17 Bionic now has the Pro nomenclature attached to it. So it's a new Pro processor, and they didn't put it in the regular iPhone 15s. So for the first time ever, Apple is specifically designating a spec and performance difference between the regular iPhones and the Pro iPhones. On top of that, there's also 2 more gigabytes of RAM inside the Pro iPhones. So across the board, the internals have been significantly upgraded. And that translates into, well, very minor noticeable boosts in performance. Yeah, sorry to be a Debbie Downer about that. I know this is the most powerful iPhone ever, and it can handle all those console quality games they demoed in their keynote presentation, but a vast majority of people can't discern any speed difference from last year's iPhone to this year's. It's just not something that's significant, and it's probably not even noticeable at all. In fact, in my iPhone 14 Pro versus 15 Pro video, there was hardly any difference in speed. Now, I don't think this is some glaring issue. I think it just stems from the fact that the iPhone is first and foremost a mobile device, a smartphone, something people use for relatively basic tasks, web browsing, video watching, social media scrolling, and there's like this upper limit, I think, with speed and performance. Past a certain point, the phone can't load YouTube any faster than the app animations are showing. It can't launch Candy Crush any more smoothly. Most people aren't editing and exporting like 4K video footage or project files on their iPhones, so most people are never going to experience the full potential of the Pro iPhone chip. That's sort of a shame, but I'd also argue that it maybe is at a point now where you're paying for a lot of stuff you perhaps aren't even using. Like, if a good chunk of this phone's $1,000 price tag is locked up in its over-the-top processor that you don't even fully utilize because you use YouTube, Safari, and text messaging 99% of the time, it seems like you maybe wasted money. But I don't know, maybe I'm missing something or being a little pessimistic. I just can't see how the iPhone needs to be any faster or more powerful at this point, which I realize may be sort of ridiculous to say. Finally, the thing that Apple seems to continue to change most year over year on these iPhones is the camera setup. And this year, while the hardware specs are more or less the same, Apple still wants you to know that this is the best camera they've ever offered. There's still the 48 megapixel main lens, the 12 megapixel telephoto lens, the 12 megapixel 120 degree ultra wide, and even the exact same 12 megapixel selfie shooter up front. But there's some new capabilities, and the actual pictures and videos you captured tend to be a bit better as well. You can now quickly switch focal lengths with the tap of a button. 24, 28, and 35mm shortcuts have been added to that 1x toggle there. I'm not sure too many people will use that at first or even know what it does, but it can change the look of your shots just a bit. Unfortunately, the improved zoom capabilities are reserved for the Pro Max, so not much to say there. The main camera lens does offer improved low light performance, as is the case every year, so your nighttime shots should continue to be brighter and clearer. It's the same story with the ultra wide lens. It's even better this year with low light shots especially. Functionally, you can snap and adjust portrait pics after the fact, as they're captured automatically when a person or pet is in frame. And there's a new 24 megapixel default image resolution, which allows for both sharper looking images with more detail and smaller actual file sizes. So hopefully you won't have to opt for the 1 terabyte iPhone capacity this year just to have a few hundred pictures on your device. Same with the 48 megapixel pictures. They're smaller file sizes for those too. Now in practice, yes, I would argue that more often than not, the new iPhone 15 Pro can capture a better shot in less than ideal conditions. Dark scenes, night settings, high variable situations with dark shadows or bright lights. The dynamic range is better for sure. There's often a lot more detail and information in each shot too, though I would argue that this year, photos tend to maybe look a little more dull. Are they accurate in a similar way to like the Pixel 8 Pro presents with very true to life looking shots? Sure, but some people I know prefer a punchy, saturated, maybe even overdone looking shot that presents a scene in a way that looks better than real life. That's not really the case here, and I still firmly believe that even with all the extra camera features and shooting modes and capabilities, that most people will simply whip out their phone and snap a quick, semi-blurry picture in the default shooting modes. If that's the case, even those pictures should look a little better, but hopefully more people do take advantage of the pro camera features because there's really a lot to offer here, and it's also kind of what you're paying for. All in all, I truly think this year's new iPhone 15 Pro is a worthy upgrade. All the new iPhones are, honestly. I think you should ignore the constant barrage of titanium ads. That's not really a new noticeable feature on this phone, but the USB-C port, the action button, the faster processor, and the improved cameras all are. And I think collectively, this is one of the more significant upgrades to the iPhone from the last few years. But what do you guys think? Will you be getting the new iPhone 15 Pro this year? Do you think it's worth it? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, of course. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video though. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already. I'll see you guys later.